Ryan Jarrell here for MMA News, and my next guest will be back in action at UFC Vegas 88 on March the 23rd when he takes on Ricardo Ramos. And of course, it is Juicy J, Julian Erosa on the show. Julian, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Ryan. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
man. Yeah, it's great to talk to you. We chatted a little bit before we started the interview, but I did see you on the TV this past weekend. You were cornering your boy Nicholas Moto, who had a big win down there at the Apex. You guys got to be pretty excited about that performance.
Yeah, especially since it was my debut as a UFC cornerman. I've cornered a lot of guys in smaller promotions and amateur promotions as well, but never in the UFC. It's as long as I've been in and out of the UFC and been around UFC guys, this was the first one. I've helped Mota out a lot with a lot of his fights, and I feel like it was one of those things that I could see specifically what he needed for this fight, and give him that look. Obviously Tom is a little taller than I am, but I think I'm just as rangy and can really show him that a good southpaw look. Even though technically I'm an orthodox fighter, I can go. I can give a good look southpaw as well. So we worked on a lot of things with Mota, but honestly, when it comes down to it, he's the guy in there and he's the one that's got to make it happen. And he did. He did exactly what we've been working on, and and handled it like a true professional.
Yeah, man, you look great in there. I've talked to a lot of fighters who say they get more nervous when they're cage side for their teammates' fights because it's out of your control. It's all up to them. What was that feeling like for you, cage side?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have, the highest of hopes, but we expect the worst. So you're on that fine line of like getting so excited if he wins, but then also like trying to figure out how to react if he loses, and so like you're kind of riding this weird line, and and so when it happens one way or the other, it could be devastating, or it could be, you could be so super excited. So for me, it's just I agree with everybody else. I get way more nervous and have more anxiety walking out with a training partner than I do when I fight myself, and that's exactly why. It's because I can't do anything about it. I can
Yeah.
if my partner is in there getting his butt kicked, I can't do anything about it. If I'm in there getting my butt kicked, at least I can. I'm the person doing it, and I can at least do something about it.
Yeah, for sure. Forgive my ignorance. I've never actually been to Extreme Couture, but I know it's
Yeah.
right there in Vegas. How close is it to the Apex?
Oh man, it was 10 minutes.
Oh, wow. Must be
Yeah.
so nice being able to train right there.
Oh yeah, we train, right down the road, and then obviously the PI is right next to the Apex as well. So, I mean, these are roads that we travel every single day. So, when you go there on the bus, fight day, there's a little bit less anxiety because you're in a familiar place, and you're not, you're not out of the country, you're not out of the state, going to a different arena, and because so even just the smallest details like that can cause a little bit more anxiety and nervousness.
For sure. And as anyone that really follows you on social media knows, you do have a baby coming here soon, and it's right around the same time as your scheduled upcoming fight. First off, congratulations on the
Thank
addition
you.
to the family, man. That's fantastic. Are you nervous that this could maybe have a fight cancellation for you if it happens? Like is that even in your mind?
Not really, honestly. I'm a pretty like day by day type of person. So like, I'm focused on today, my training today, and then tomorrow, and then the next day, and then I'll be focused on my baby when he's coming here, and then after that, I'm gonna be still focused on my fight. And so obviously, unless there was like some major medical issues surrounding my wife and her pregnancy or in her labor, that's the only way I could maybe cancel this fight would get canceled.
Mhm.
But everything seems to be, my wife's healthy, the baby's healthy. It has been healthy this entire time. It's been 7 months. So, she's at the tail end of the pregnancy, and everything seems to be good. But you never know; things can happen. So, I'm gonna be on guard. And honestly, I wanted to have a fight before she was, gave labor, or gave birth to our kid. But you gotta take what you can get sometimes. And this was the date they gave me, the matchup they gave me, and I said yes almost immediately. I've been really trying to fight, for a long time now. I've been looking for a matchup for, man, it feels like forever now because the last time I fought would be almost a year once I fight. So
Yeah.
uh, I mean, even after my last fight, I was helping Dan Ige get ready for Nate Landwehr. So, and I was like in good shape, ready to fight at that time, and that was forever ago. I mean, this will be his third fight. Within that span, he fought Landwehr, Mitchell, and now he's gonna fight Murphy as well. So I'm just trying to get in there. I've been ready for that entire time, and so I'm just trying to get in there and get something on the books. So I'm just happy I have something on the books and have a date to get to.
Yeah, that has to be really frustrating because that was actually going to be a question I had for you. Is it's been a year since we've seen you fight, man. Like I have to imagine that that's gotta you gotta be coming out of your skin wanting to get back in the octagon.
Yeah, it feels like I've been, getting geared up for other people's fights. I've been helping a lot of people out with their fights, like obviously Mota's fight. I was helping Dan out with a couple of his fights. Uh, Natan Levy, I was helping him get ready for his fight that he had to pull out of because of a blood condition he had going on. And then a couple other lower level guys I was helping get ready as well. And so it just keeps feeling like it kept feeling like I was getting ready for somebody else's fight, and then like I wasn't having the payoff at the end. I was getting
Yeah.
ready, helping these guys out. I was in shape, ready to go, and then they would go fight, and then I would just be hanging out, and then go help somebody else out. So, or even and also I was helping out Aljo for his fight when he fought O'Malley. So it's like it feels like I've had so many camps that aren't mine that I feel like I'm getting ready for, and so finally to have a date and have an opponent and just have something to look forward to at the end of these 10 weeks is just it's a piece of it's a it's just a relief on my own mind that I have something to pay off at the end.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And what is your current contractual status with the UFC? How many fights do you have left on your deal?
I have two fights on my contract left. The Caceres fight was the first one on my new contract, and so I'm 0-2 on this contract. But I feel like the last fight, it sucked the way it turned out because I felt like it was stopped too early. I mean, it looked bad early on, but when he did stop it, it didn't look bad. I was on my feet still, right, like protecting myself, and just one of those things, I can be upset with Tyone if I want to about the stoppage of the fight, but at the same time, I should have been putting myself in that position. I should have put myself in that position to even have him question whether the fight should be stopped or not.
Hmm.
And so it's just frustrating how that turned out because I mean some of my best fights have been fights that I have been dropped in. Sean Woodson dropped me
Yeah.
before I finished him. Nate Landwehr dropped me for a second before I finished him. Jourdain caught me and dropped me before I finished him as well. So and even Peterson hurt me at one point in that fight. And so I just I just wish some of these refs would take into consideration like some like the fighters and who they are and just not be so quick to pull the trigger sometimes. But they're looking out for our safety, and so I understand it. And I can't be upset with him because I put myself in that position in the first place.
What did you find, looking back at it now, were the difficulties being in there with Padilla? He's tall, long like you, but was there anything that maybe surprised you in the fight?
Yes, specifically right out the gate, it just seemed like his range was hard to read. He was very long, and longer than I mean, I knew he was gonna be long, but it just felt like he was a bit longer in person than I was anticipating. And so I think that's what really caught me off guard when he dropped me the first time with this cross, and then obviously after you get dropped and in the way that I did, you're not going to be of your right mind anyway. So I'm just trying to collect my thoughts and get back to my feet and try to protect myself. And then he hits me again. I dropped to my knee for a second and pop back up. And actually at that time I was about I would say maybe 90% back to ready to go. And then Chris hops in, and I already knew I'm like I'm already arguing the stoppage while he's stopping it because I could see it happening, and I'm like everything's fine, like just get away from us, let me keep fighting.
Yeah.
If he and not to say that he wouldn't have finished me later down the line, but just give me a chance, man. I think most fighters want to be given that chance, and one thing that's just upsetting with that specific fight was that Song Yadong versus Ricky Simone was the main event, and they ended up stopping that fight TKO for Song Yadong, but it was like that was like the fourth or fifth time Ricky Simone had been hurt, and
Hmm.
it was getting to the point where he was getting hurt enough to where they had to stop it, and it's like the consistency, like let him hurt me, put me on my back, and give me some shots while I'm on my back, and not answering back, I would understand that. But I'm on my feet, and you stop the fight when I'm on my feet. I just, God, it's one of those things that just it's a bit frustrating. But like I said, I can't change it, and I can't be upset because I put myself in that situation. So, but I just want consistency.
Hmm. This might be, I don't know, a crazy thing to say, but you tell me what you think. You mentioned that main event with Song Yudong and Ricky Simone. Do you feel like the refs maybe feel more pressure to allow like main events go a little bit longer rather than a fight that might be on the prelims or earlier on in the card? Like, do you think that they feel that from like the big bosses like Dana and the UFC?
Yeah, for sure. I think there is a stigma about that where if they're fighting for titles, they're main events, co-main events, or they're like, you know, uh, you know, uh, fights that are like, to fight for the number one
Yeah.
contendership, stuff like that, where it's a bit more important things on the line for these guys. I do feel like they're a bit pressured to let the fights last longer, but they're not different from us. I mean, we're all in the UFC training
Yeah.
our asses off, and we all can be hurt just as bad as as the next guy, and so there should be just a consistency across the board. Like, um, oh, those prelim guys, they're not fighting for a title, so we can just stop it now. No, like my paycheck's on the line, and it means more to me than some of the upper level guys that are getting paid these great money to show. So like if you're a guy that's really relying on this, your win purse, uh, it's more important for some of us lower level guys. We might not ever get the opportunity to get back in there and fight again. So like obviously a good example is like if someone had the title at one point and they go 5 losses in a row, they'll still probably be fighting in the UFC. But me, I'm on 2 fights or a 2 fight losing streak. If I lose my next fight, they might cut me. So it's so important that they give me every opportunity to continue, and that's all I'm looking for. I'm just looking for the consistency. Just because you're a main event or you're a co-main event or you're fighting for a title doesn't mean your chin's stronger.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean you have less ability to lose brain cells. Like we're all humans, we're all fighters, we all do the same stuff. So just give us the consistency throughout. And I know it's tough because we have different refs, and we're humans. So it's not like it's a machine that's calculating when the fight should be done or not. It's a human doing it, so we all have human error, and I understand that. And like I said, I always got to go back to it. It's my fault. I was put in that position. I got dropped, and if I put myself in a position where I wasn't getting dropped, then I wouldn't have to worry about that. So, all in all, it's my own fault, but it's just frustrating to deal with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, man. Very well said. That I love what you said there talking about it because it makes so much sense. And I agree with you. There really should be more consistency from the refs because it is all over the place. When if you're a junkie like me where you're watching all these fights, it is all over the place. It's not as consistent as it should be. You talk about, being on this 2 fight skid, Julian. Do you feel that pressure to win this one? I imagine you do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like when you're doing very well, you know, it almost feels like there's more pressure to outdo yourself or to continue what you've been doing. Like, after, my most recent run where, I mean, I was at 5 out of 6, but even that 3 fight win streak that I had, ending with the Dawodu fight and probably one of my best performances in the cage. Um, it's almost like there's more pressure for me to continue that, and like people are expecting something out of me. When I fought Sean Woodson, I was coming off of like, I mean, I'd won a fight, but it was on the regional scene. But I was coming off of 3 losses in the UFC in a row, so there was really no expectation. I was just the guy that they were putting as a parlay for their bets, as a guarantee kind of. So for me, there was no expectation, and it's almost like better. I love to be the underdog because it just feels like there's no expectation to do anything or to do anything great. Like you can just go out there and fight like you want to fight, and just focus in on that versus any type of expectations. And so for me, it's like losing these last 2 fights, even though I feel like the last one was a bit of a was a bit sketchy. And that's a bad word. It's a lack of a better word, but I feel like there's just less expectation of me. People are like, well, Julian's kind of inconsistent, so like they're not, necessarily expecting me to, go out there and dominate. But I feel like when there's less pressure on your shoulders, you can go out there and fight to your best ability without stressing too much about the outcome.
So with that being said, what are your goals here for 2024? What is it that you want to accomplish here in this new calendar year?
I mean, obviously, just I would like to keep my job and and go out there and be able just to keep putting on performances. Um, uh, I just one of the good things about it is like I still have experiences in the cage where I've done well against other UFC fighters. So I always go back to those things, and it builds my confidence into leading up to even this fight. But I want to be able to be able to put it together and go in there and translate the work that I'm doing in the gym into the cage. That's one of the hardest things for people to do. Even a guy with my experience, you still have most of the time they say what you do in the gym, it's always going to come down a level when you go into the big stage. So I want to be able to just to translate it as evenly over as I possibly can, and that's basically my goal. And obviously to still be in the UFC throughout the year, as fight as much as I can. And I've been very lucky with injuries. I don't get injured very often, and haven't really had to deal with that. So if I can stay active, if I can win this fight and stay active after that'd be my goal.
Yeah, well, it's always great watching you compete, man. So hopefully, you do get some wins. You stay in the big show. That's where you belong. And obviously, training at one of the best gyms in the world, Xtreme Couture. There's so many great fighters there. I have to imagine if you were like an MMA fan, it would be like walking into Extreme Couture would be like going to the NFL Pro Bowl or something. There's just greatness everywhere you look. How has this camp been? And who have you had around you mostly to help you prepare for Ricardo?
Well, my camp just started. Basically, I would say this is the first week. I just got back from Washington State with my wife for her baby shower, and so this was the first week basically of getting back. But like I said, I've been getting ready with other guys for their camp. So we just have. I mean, there's a plethora of guys from the UFC that are walking in and out. I mean, we have champions in the gym all the time. So it's just awesome to see those guys and just understand that they're just just everyday guys, just like me. Just you always put these guys on a pedestal, but then you realize when you see them in the gym training day in and day out, just like we are, that they're just normal dudes. They get in the gym and they get their butt kicks as well. They don't have every day's not a great day for them. Every day, is a learning lesson. Some days are good and some days, aren't so good. And so it's one of those things that kind of just like humbles you, but also just like it puts everything at an even playing field. Like when you think of like certain guys, you're like, oh my God, that guy's so good. Or even Sean Strickland, oh, that guy's a champion. Like, he must be doing something different. He must be, a different type of human being than I am. And then I see him and I talk to him and I work with him. And he even gives me advice. He loves watching me spar, and he's a big fan of mine, just like I am of his. And you realize that he could be my brother. He could be my cousin. I mean, he's no different than I am, really. So it kind of evens it out in my own mind or in anybody's mind that goes there. And even though you might be a little starstruck to begin with, you're used to seeing these guys, and then you get to the point where you're just like, oh, it's an everyday thing, and it makes you feel more comfortable being in there.
Yeah. I can't wait for this fight this coming weekend for the middleweight title,
Oh
Strickland
yeah,
Plessis. And honestly, when I look at it objectively, Julian, I keep going back and forth. I feel like either guy could win this fight.
yeah,
When you look at it and you put your high IQ MMA mind to work here, obviously, Strickland's your guy, so you're leaning
yeah,
towards him. But what do you think we're going to see in this fight? Because this, to me, is a 50-50 matchup.
yeah. I would say that Duplessis has more tools and more ways to win this fight. Um, But the thing about Strickland is the thing about all fighters really is he has that thing that you can't equate to anything. Where like he just has the willingness and the ability and the want to fight.
He's a
So
dog.
exactly. And so if you're a guy that goes in there that has any bit of doubt, Sean Strickland's going to go in there and make you accept that doubt. Like if you have a guy across from you that has zero doubt in his mind that he's there and he wants to fight, regardless if you knock him out or beat him up, that's a scary opponent to deal with. If you look over and you see a guy that has a little bit of worry on his face, that makes you feel more at ease. But when you step in there with Sean that there's no worry. He's there to fight. He's gonna do he's gonna do what he does. And whether the outcome is good for him or not, he's going to go out there and fight his ass off, and that's a scary opposition to have. So, I would say that Strickland has a little bit of edge in that sense, but I do think Duplessis has a bit more in the toolbox. But we'll see. I haven't necessarily felt like I've seen Duplessis gas out, but fighting Strickland's a different puzzle, and some of the best guys with the best cardio can break at any given time as well. So it'll be interesting to see it out. I'm always rooting for Strickland. He's such a good dude, in and out of the cage, and I'm hoping he brings the belt back, and I hope he has a pretty. I hope he just has some funny shit on the mic as well. I mean, that's really what everybody tunes in for, right?
Well, that's for sure going to happen. You know that this is going to be a fun media week to see everything that transpires before the fight. I can't wait for it, man. I'm a huge football fan, Julian. Patriots. I've been a diehard fan for years now, and I don't know if you saw Bill Belichick recently
Yeah.
moved on, so he's going to be coaching somewhere else. So I've been asking fighters this week when I've had the chance to interview fighters, what makes a coach a phenomenal coach? Like when you look at Eric Nixick, for example, what is it about him that just makes him such a darn good coach?
I think it's, being able to, to pick apart your strengths and your weaknesses, and obviously your opponents as well, and be able to capitalize on those things. I mean, like even for myself, like when I was helping Mota out with his fight, I felt more confident in helping him out and understanding what he should do for his fight to win than I even felt for, some of my past fights on what I need to do. Like I know what I need to do to win certain fights, but it's different for me to transition that or translate that just to myself because I'm already in my head. I think I already know this, so I don't need to tell myself this. But I think there are times where you need to tell yourself that, and so like from the point of view of being able to like help somebody and watch it come, to fruition in front of me in the cage, I can see how how it can be a little easier to do that with somebody else versus yourself. And I think Nixick is very good at being able to dive into that and figuring out game plans, even if it's against a guy that's better than you, like to figure out where you can get the edges and really expand on those edges. And so, and obviously he's been doing it for years. So I mean, it just comes with the territory. If you've been doing it for a long time, you're just gonna get better and better at doing it. But that's one of the biggest things that I took away from even coaching Mota and helping him out for his fight was to, even though I know things in my head, I just have to hear myself repeat it to understand it more and more. Because when I would tell Mota things over and over and over again, I was like, man, I've already told him this, but it's one of those things where you just, the more you ingrain it into his head, the more it's gonna stick. It's gonna become reactionary for him. So instead of just ignoring things because I think I know him, I need to kind of reiterate those things for myself. But I think that's also one of the reasons why Nixick is so good. He just reiterates the same thing over and over and over again, and just tries to have you hone in on the things that are gonna make you win that fight.
Yeah, I've been a big fan of his for a while now. I haven't had the chance to interview him yet, but that's on the bucket list. One of these days, it's going to happen, man. Let's
Yeah.
talk about this fight, shall we? UFC Vegas 88, March the 23rd. If I'm not mistaken, this is your third fight in a row at the Apex. Is that a little disappointing? Were you hoping you're kind of going to be like on a big pay-per-view?
I mean, honestly, I'm home, so like being at nothing really beats being at home and not having to go to Florida or go international somewhere. I like to be at home, and obviously having the kid, a week and a half beforehand, it's gonna be nice to be around, so I don't have to fight. I don't have to fly out and then fly back and be gone for a week. I mean, even during fight week, I can just come home and hang out with my wife and be here for my kid as well. My wife's gonna be here. My mom's gonna be here, so she's gonna have some help on her hands while I'm gone during fight week. But I'll still have the accessibility to come home and see my kid. It's gonna be one of those things where I'm gonna want to see him. And I feel like it's one of those things also that's gonna give me a lot of motivation. Like having my kid right before my fight, it's gonna give me a little bit more of an edge. Mentally, for my fight, and emotionally as well. So I I prefer not to travel, so if I don't have to, it's all good. I'll miss out on the pay-per-view. And honestly, I was telling Mota about this on the way to the Apex last time. Was I'd rather be on the fight nights because the fight nights it's easier for the guys on the prelims and the guys that aren't necessarily named or huge fan favorites to get bonuses. Because if you're on a pay-per-view card, man, they're stacking. Most pay-per-view cards are pretty stacked on the top end, so those are the guys that they're most likely going to get those bonuses. So if you're a
Yeah.
guy on the prelims, if you're a guy that kind of hovers around, that area, it's better to be on a fight night. Be on a fight night. Try to be on a boring fight night because then you might even have that much more ability to get those bonuses. So, and I'm an exciting fighter. And I feel like Ricardo Ramos is going to be an exciting fighter as well on that night. So I think that me and him could put on a show that could, or a fight that could be fight of the night worthy. So I feel like it's a bit easier to do that on a fight night than if it was on a pay-per-view. So those are kind of the reasons why
Yeah.
I prefer being on fight nights, especially at the Apex, because I'm home and I feel like I have a better ability or a higher percentage rate of getting some sort of bonus. So, and then also less fights. Most pay-per-views, I think they range like 13 fights sometimes because they
Mhm.
have the early prelims, the prelims, all that stuff. So, and I feel like fight nights have a couple less fights, so less people to compete with, and a higher percentage to get a bonus.
That all makes sense. And obviously, with you having this upcoming child, you'd want to be home. So, yeah,
Yes.
you're right where you want to be. And kids are expensive. So, yeah, this 50K bonus, that would help out a lot.
Oh, 100%, man. I would love to go out there and put on. I mean, bonus worthy or not, I just want to go out there and put on exciting fights. That's always been my character, and so I really want to just do that again and just get my hand raised, man. That's such a like that feeling that you get when that happens, and then if you haven't experienced it for a while, it's such a burning feeling that's all you want. Is it? It's just it's undescribable, and so that's something that I just really have been itching for the last handful of months. So I'm just excited to get back in there.
I know Ricardo Ramos pretty well. He actually fought in my hometown at Dana White's Looking for a Fight, the fight that got him into the UFC. Well-rounded guy. I mean, you got a lot
Yes.
more experience. I think twice as many submission victories and TKO wins, but he's got a lot himself too.
Yeah.
And you guys share a common opponent in Charles Jourdain. He actually lost to Jourdain. When you look at him and just his style, like, do you feel like you're going to hold some big edges in certain areas here?
Like I said, with the whole, why Eric's such a good coach is finding the small things that you think, he's or his weaknesses and what I would take advantage in and just trying to expand on those things. I've watched the majority of his fights already. And what I've noticed is he's kind of a front runner. He likes to come out and he does, some big fancy kicks. He almost kind of starts capoeira sometimes. Like he does some weird funky kicks, comes out with kind of like spinning stuff. But what I've noticed too is after some of his exchanges, he uh, he seems to slow down quite a bit. I feel like my style is pretty consistent all the way through. He comes out a bit heavy and then he has to slow down. So just like anybody else, I mean, I feel like my whole game plan is always surrounded around trying to get the fight to the second round, the third round, and just drag it out. I know he's a good grappler, and so I don't want to look past him in that sense because anybody can get caught at any time. But I've never been submitted in my life. I have been submitted in my life, but never submitted in any fight. He was just submitted his last fight by Jourdain with a guillotine, and I would say that my front headlock series is relatively good. He's gonna definitely have to watch out for that for me. But I, I'm just confident in my defense on the ground. Uh, and also with the striking, I'm pretty confident in that as well. He's very fast and flashy at some point, so I just got to be aware of these things. Like I know he's gonna throw some spinning stuff, here and there, and I got to be aware of these things. I know he likes that spinning elbow. I'm a bit tall, and I might be a bit hard for him to do that too. So I'm not too worried about that as long as I keep my range. But I think it's one of those things where I just kind of slowly, take him into the deeper ends of the fight and and slowly break him there. I felt like I've seen him. I mean, even the Jourdain fight, like he was dominating Jourdain the entire time, and then Jourdain catches him in a guillotine, and he kind of tapped pretty quick. And for being like, as high, as good of a grappler as he is, it just makes me wonder like where his heart's at. If you like, it's almost even like Charles Oliveira versus Islam. It's like that was like it showed Charles's like kind of tendencies to kind of give up a little bit because it was like he kind of tapped pretty quick, even in that. And I'm not taking anything away from Islam because obviously probably he's a squeeze like no other. But being a high level black belt jujitsu guy, you feel like you're just gonna die there. Like just take me out. Like they're gonna have to wake me up. I'd rather be woken up than tap and know that I tapped. So same with Ricardo Ramos and the Jourdain thing. And that Jourdain's probably got a good guillotine. I mean, he got Lando Venata as well in it his previous fight before that as well. So, but for a guy who was dominating in the grappling for for the first few minutes and then just gets guillotined and taps pretty quick. Makes me wonder where his heart's at. And so I think, that's one thing I'll never have is I'll never have any quit in me. So as long as I can get him into the second round, get him into the third round, I think that's going to take over, and that's going to be my advantage over him.
And I know, Julian, you're always looking for the finish, but again, you being on this two fight losing streak, having a child around the corner, do you feel like you're going to be kind of gunning for it, maybe even more so than usual?
I mean, maybe not. I think actually, you know what? I don't think there's going to be, any real difference in my fighting. Honestly, I think I'm going to be uh, a bit more, I don't know, I don't want to say slower or timid. I just want to like, especially early on in the fight, having the last two fights end in the first round. It's like that's not where I'm strong. Like I'm strong in the entire fight, but I'm strongest in the third round. So my biggest goal is just to elongate this fight for 15 minutes if I have to. But my finishes usually happen towards the end of fights. I mean, obviously, I knocked out Nate Landwehr pretty quick, but some of my best finishes were against guys in the third round, and that's where I feel like my advantage is. So I really want to just elongate this fight as long as possible, and I want to get into those positions where I want to get him to tap because he's tired. If I try to Darce choke him, if I try to guillotine choke him in the first round, he's probably. I mean, he might not tap. He's gonna have a little bit more fight in him. But if he's in the third round and he's getting tired, I'm feeling heavy on him, and then I slap on a guillotine or a Darce, he's gonna be more willing to tap. I mean, a good example is even the Jourdain and the Sean Woodson. If I would have tried Darcing those guys in the first round, I probably don't get it. But the fact that I was able to get them after they retired, that's the reason why I got them, because I got them when they retired. They were, a bit more willing to tap at those times.
Cardio is king, and you got plenty of it, my friend.
Sir.
So official prediction, third round submission TKO. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I want to say I want to say third round TKO or submission. Um, but if it goes to 3 rounds, I definitely want to win it, and so I want to have decisive wins in each round as well. So I want to keep a strong pace on him, be smart, get it to the third round, and go for the finish there.
One last thing for me. If he does try some spinning shit and maybe misses, do you think you're gonna channel your inner Diaz and do a little trash talk like, oh, we're doing spinning shit now?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think sometimes it comes out in fights. For me, it's just one of those, in the moment. Like if I feel it, and I think honestly for him, he is like I said, I feel like he's a front runner. So if he starts to do decline, and starts to do bad, if I pile on with a little bit of trash talk, I think it might get to him. So who knows? Maybe I'll do it. Maybe I won't. He seems like a very respectable guy. So I'm not going
Yeah.
to say anything for to make it personal, but I might say things in the cage to throw him off his game.
Yeah. Anytime I hear spinning stuff, I immediately think of the
Yeah,
Diaz
oh, we
brothers.
spinning now.
Yeah, exactly,
I
man.
love that shit. Yeah, that's fucking hilarious. I think that's like one of the like. I mean, that happens like almost daily in the gym. When we're messing around, we're sparring. Someone spins. Oh, we're spinning now. I think
Yeah.
almost everybody repeats that. It's funny.
It's classic, man. Can't wait to
Yeah.
see you back in there, Julian. March the 23rd, UFC Vegas 88. Juicy J, Julian Erosa makes his return to action against Ricardo Ramos. As always, my man, I appreciate your time. Great talking to you. Before we do sign off, I want to give you the floor. Anything you want to plug, anyone you want to thank? Floor yours.
Yeah, obviously all of my friends and all my family that, support me in what I do. Shout out to Iridium Sports Agency, Jason House and all the guys over there because without them, a lot of us want to be in these positions. So always shout out to those guys. And they always help us out. They anything we need, they give for us. We need training gear, we need other sponsorships, they always hook it up, help cutting weight. They get, they'll be there at the bathtub if you need them. I never needed them, but if I needed them here, they would be here the day I had to cut weight at 4 in the morning. So shout out to those guys always. Shout out to my wife, carrying my baby boy. March 14th is the due date. So shout out to him because he's going to be here soon. He's going to be able to watch me on his first experience of me being in the UFC. So I'm really excited for that. And shout out to you as well, Ryan, for having me on again.